Hello everyone, and welcome to the game of World of Warships. Today's replay is from Mad Life, and he's in the Clausewitz, a tier 11 German cruiser. He's on the map Northern Waters. It's an arms race battle, tier 11, with only one tier 11 per team though. Now there is no carrier and no sub, so that's great news. Now it looks like both teams are deploying heavily here on the left side, with most of the friendlies and most of the enemies here, and actually looks like the friendlies might have a one-ship advantage on the other side. So far the enemies have already 2 buffs, the friendlies only have 1, but it's not that big of a deal just yet. Now unfortunately, there is a Moskva that might be covering like those buffs. There is a Salem that's probably on the other side of this island that's covering those buffs. So friendly destroyer here will have a hard time getting any of this. Now the friendlies do have a Plymouth here, so some radar of their own. On the other side we have a Seattle. Not sure if that 9-kilometer radar is gonna extend to that buff. The Moskva is unfortunately a bit in the back. Meanwhile the enemies are pushing the right side. So I presume all the buffs spawning there will fall into the enemy's hands. Now our Clausewitz here is just happily pew-pewing away. I mean, Clausewitz, like the Hindenburg, is a ship that's usually played from medium to longer ranges, and you would just sit there and do damage at least early on. And then maybe in the later stages of the game, you can get some pushing done. Now, and Alvaro is coming in here to grab that damage buff, but it has been detected and it got wrecked before it reached it. And when you look at the minimap, it was so very close. But not close enough. Now that's great. The enemy lost the destroyer here, and there are only 2 per team. But the enemy didn't just lose a destroyer, they also failed to grab the buff. Now of course they got one reloads there earlier, and they are going to get that health buff on the other side as well. So the enemies is unfortunately running a little bit away with buffs, but hey, friendlies have a one-ship advantage. Now there seem to be quite a few buffs here spawning on this side, so that provides potentially an opportunity. And it looks like the friendly team is now slowly moving forward. We have like 3 battleships here moving in. That's a rare sight, but a rather welcome one. If the friendly team can move just a little bit ahead, then they might be able to dislodge that Salem and allow the friendly destroyer to be a little bit more happy here. Okay, that Salem is not angled enough, I think. Armor piercing, it's on its way, and all shells fell short. Oh, that was sad. You'd expect there to be citadels, and there wasn't even a single hit. Now we get the citadel, and oh come on, the Salem is super healing. Don't let it flee. And there we go. That's splendid news. Because the enemy Moskva is relatively passive. With that Salem dislodged, all of those capture points, well, or buffs, I suppose, that were previously protected by radar are now open for grabs. Well, there seems to be a very brave Vincent pushing in. But the Vincent is severely lacking in detection tools. Now it looks like the friendly battleships are, instead of pushing like the left side, they're pushing here more into the center. We'll see how that works out. On the other side, unfortunately, the team hasn't really been accomplishing that much, but at least there's still 3 ships alive, and the set of 6 is probably gonna get a buff here. Now, the Winston seems to be slowly pushing in against the Kurfürst. This is... I mean, the Kurfürst is still reasonably healthy. This is going to be an interesting engagement. The Vincent has the single launch nose torpedoes. Those hit very hard and reload relatively quickly, but the Vincent has a nose that can be overmatched by the Kurfürst, so the Kurfürst can just citadel the Vincent from the front. Depending on its RNG though. And of course there are the Kurfürst secondaries. And if the Kurfürst manages to get off a sail by, it will probably get a lot of citadels. So depending on the skill of those players, it might just be a lot of RNG, and unfortunately the Kurfürst lost. Just saying it might be a lot RNG based, because if the Kurfürst gets the no citadels, then the Vincent's gonna get wrecked, and if not, then the Kurfürst's gonna eat the torps. Well, that's bad news. The friendlies are behind the ship, and well, actually the friendlies have now 3 buffs. It's not too bad. Now this is where the center capture point spawns, and the center capture point is a very important one because it gives you a lot of points. Now the enemy team is out of destroyers though, so they'll have a hard time capping it. The friendlies will probably just be able to interrupt. Now we have a Kronstadt in there. The fire has been damage count, but Madlife is now going for armor piercing because it's a Kronstadt and it seems not... Well, actually, when we look at the minimap, it might be a bit better angled than it looks like from a zoomed-in perspective. Somebody else set a fire on the Kronstadt. That's relatively good news. And this Vincent is still alive. It's chasing down the friendly Plymouth. And... is it healing? Yes, it's super healing. That's not good, but oh, good salvo there. It's still a super heal though, and I'm afraid it might be healing a lot quicker than it's getting damaged. So the friendly Plymouth might not get out of this alive. Now the good news, I suppose, is as long as the Vincent is shooting the Plymouth, our Clausewitz here can show more... Wait. It just got hit. I was just saying it can show more broadside without having to worry. But then again, I suppose the Vincent does have that awkward third turret that can't shoot forward. So it needs to be used at the side. Now this whole game is a pretty close one. The friendlies are 1 ship behind. But it's still pretty much anyone's game. The friendly Yamato tier is on the right side is unfortunately still relatively passive. Like the whole right flank, the Moskva and the Yamato have been hanging a little bit too far back. With the support, the right flank might have turned out entirely different in this game. Now we had a little bit of collision here with the Yoshino. It would also be nice if the Yamato would take a little bit more of a tanking role. You know what? Let's unlock the camera and have a look. How... yeah, see that the Yamato is so healthy still. And there aren't even that many enemy ships around. There is no destroyer here that it has to get the torpedoes off. And yet the Yamato is technically the furthest away from the battle, I'd say. Well, on the brighter side, is Bourgogne is getting relatively low. Madlife noticed the same thing and is trying to help sink it. The Ivami isn't that healthy. Like, if the friendlies could clear out those 2 ships, that would be nice. It's always good if all the enemies, in a sense, are in the same direction. So there isn't a crossfire, and ships will have an easier time angling. Bourgogne is hopefully sinking here. Yes, it is. Now for the Ivami. The Ivami, although, seems to be seeking some cover behind an island. It's not the biggest island, though. Yeah, that's a pretty good hit. A few more of those, maybe a fire on top. And... there you go. Now the friend is actually a ship ahead suddenly. They're still a bit behind on points, because they have... well, actually, look at how many buffs are up for grabs. Both teams have been not so good at collecting those, but that's probably because the destroyers have all been sunk already. Now, oh, the Duncan went down. So this health buff seems an easy grab. The damage here has been ignored by the Moskva and the Yamato, but then again those two have ignored a lot of things anyway. So it looks like Madlife is turning away from that buff and not taking it either. Maybe he thought the Moskva and Yamato were going to grab it coming from that side, but honestly I wouldn't trust those two ships with anything. Of course, he might just have decided that pushing into those ships was too risky. Buff or not. I mean, a Clausewitz or a Hindenburg is not too bad at range, and having a certain distance from the battleships helps avoid their shells or their more devastating effects, hopefully. And hey, Yamato might actually be grabbing this at some point. I think for the first time in this battle we actually see the Yamato arrive at the front lines, so suppose that's good news. Now nobody is capping the center for now, because the enemies just get interrupted constantly, but yeah, that Kremlin is almost sinking, but it got the enemies another buff. Like, the enemy team is just collecting way too many of those. That is somewhat concerning. Now there is a Kurfürst in the center. Rule 1 about fighting Kurfürsts is stay out of secondary range if possible, which means Madlife has only a little bit of room to get closer. He's currently undetected, so that is fine, but oh, there's a strike team and a fire. I mean, it's a Kurfürst, obviously it should be on fire. And there's a high caliber. Now he's already at 242,000 points of damage, a very respectable number there. And there's hopefully more to be done here. Now the Kurfürst, it might just be trying to sit behind this island and cap. Takes a while to cap, there's only 5 minutes left, but if the enemy manages to flip the center, it would be their ticket to victory. So the Kurfürst has been detected again. It's not close enough to the island to remain in cover, it looks like. Ah, the friendly Yamato is running away again. Of course it is. Of course it is. Now the good news is that Kurfürst was relying a lot on not being detected, and now it's being caught broadside. Madlife has managed to get out of the secondary range. And he's getting some very good armor-piercing hits. Now, is the Kurfürst getting a good hit back? Nope. Nope, it's not. So the Kurfürst is desperately trying to get into the cover of the island, but it's a little bit too... Is it too late with that? Maybe it's actually managed. Still seems to be burning, though. And is it gonna come around here? Oh. Oh. Now that leaves the enemy team with just one ship. And that's the Moskva. So at this point, I think it's fair to say that this is going to be a win. And if the friendly team would have stopped running away at some point, it might have even been an easier one. But, you know, looks like Madlife might be getting his 4th kill here. Ooh, not quite. Come on, get the Moskva. There we go. And here we are with the results. Madlife earned himself 3,355 base experience. That's a lot of base experience there, so very nicely done. He also managed to do like 300,000 points of damage and sink 4 enemies. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this, and I'll see you next time.